And welcome to episode 4 of Made in the 80's. I am your host, the graded 80's kid, fittingly, along with my good buddy, Sealed VHS, also known as Big Thomas Nardini. I'm Jay Boy. Welcome in for this here, the 4th episode. We are redoing a few things this week, putting a little more structure to things, letting you know a little bit from the beginning. We have a couple good segments coming up, a couple things we're going to talk about, including the Heritage Auction and some other stuff. A little Christmas preview, little superhero stuff. So yeah, we got all kinds of good stuff for you today. No unboxings, no nothing like that, but just a bunch of good chit chat. So welcome, my friend.
Was that welcome to me or everybody?
To you.
Oh, okay. Well, I will welcome everybody else. Welcome everybody else.
And a hello from El Paso, Texas. I think I have driven through there once.
No.
Yeah, on my way back from Arizona. Good to have you, my friend, El Paso Pickings. So yeah, let's kick it right off with talking about what is it? It's been about 10 days now since the last Heritage Auction, video game auction that was about 4 or 5 days after the VHS auction, the big horror VHS auction. So yeah, what'd you think? I know you didn't follow it as closely as I did, but I sent you some of the stuff that sold and some of the comps. And
I'll be honest, I have no frame of reference. What did you send me? I forgot.
Well, I sent you certainly that big Mario sale, that hang tab Mario sale that did over 700,000. That was certainly the highlight of the auction. There were some highlights and certainly some lowlights this time around, and I think it's obviously the time that we're in right now.
Well, as far as the Mario thing, it goes to what we've always said, and we've probably mentioned, I think, on every podcast before, or maybe not. We definitely talked about it, but stick the Marios, the Zeldas. That stuff is always going to bring the money in any economy, any inflation, anything. Like, that's the stuff that's going to continue to rise no matter what. And then, like we've seen, unfortunately, in the last probably 6 to 8 months, the medium and small stuff goes down. But great buying opportunity for that stuff.
Certainly. I mean, I've picked up a few things recently that, and I actually been outbid on a couple of things that I was surprised. I've only really been going after a couple of the last remnants of stuff I was looking for. And then Zelda and Mario stuff, and I got outbid on a couple of really choice Zelda items this last couple of weeks that I was surprised about. But I mean, they were really deep discounts if I would have got them at the prices I bid. So, even comparatively speaking. And
hey, quick thing, while you mentioned Zelda, do you know those they're like in the 90s, the CDI things? They come in like a CD case. Do you remember those? Remember when we went to that video game store out here where you bought the lot of
Black Box?
The CI, yeah. But remember, he had that like storage bin or whatever full of those CDI Panasonic or Philips.
Philips made its own system there for a while. It was called something CDI, this and that. But
something
there were 2 Zelda games for that system.
That's what I'm bringing up. Yeah. Underrated gems, I think. It seems like Nintendo just like blacklisted those. You never see any mention of them whatsoever. They never get any hype, and they're still official Nintendo releases. They have a Nintendo seal on them.
I mean, think there are 0 other Zelda games third party, in essence, where they've released them third party onto another system, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's crazy that those of all the systems, that's what ended up getting a Zelda title for itself.
And
and 2 of them. I don't know if you remember, I don't know what your in and out of games was over the years, but there was a period of time before the Wii took off, right? They put out the Wii, and there was a period of time during the Wii when people were really like, hey, Nintendo's going to go out of business as far as being a hardware manufacturer, right? They're just going to make software. They're just going to make, third-party titles to play Mario and Zelda and everything on Sony and Microsoft Xbox and whatever. And the Wii saved them. I remember that when the Wii came out, it got so much hype. I was one of those crazy dudes back at that time that would like go wait in line at 8 stores. And then I sold them for $500, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 on eBay. This is like early 2000s. I did that with that system. I did that with PlayStation 3. I'm trying to remember, there might have been.
I tried to do that with PS2 at my dad's house in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. There was a Walmart about 25 minutes away. And I'm like, Dad, we got to go. It dropped today. Believe me, we can make money off of this. Like, let's go there. There's not going to be a line there in Watertown, Wisconsin. Yeah. So long story short, he did not take me. Mm-hmm. Then the next day in the news, the next couple days, they're selling on eBay for like a couple thousand. He's like, "Oh, that was a good idea, Tom." I was like, "We could have made some money." Like, yeah, Dad. Yeah.
I hope you bring your dad's voice into this much more often. It's always quite enjoyable during our conversation.
The thing is, he doesn't sound like that at all.
He doesn't?
No.
I'm going to meet him and be like, "What the hell is this?"
What's this?
Yeah.
Oh, Dad.
Well, that saved them. And, the rest is history. But could you imagine we'd be at a point where, and I think the trajectory of Mario and Zelda and everything else would be vastly different if it was just being produced and played third party.
I mean, could you imagine that you seeing like a Zelda on a, Xbox or PlayStation? Like,
I know. And that's why it's so crazy to see those on that system. And it's funny because my uncle passed some years ago and he had that system, strangely enough. And of course he had he was a hoarder, so he had 100 of everything. And he had almost every title for that system, except he didn't have either of the Zeldas. Of course. Yeah, of course.
I did look. There's one of each on eBay right now, sealed. I think one is $500 or $600 and one is either $1,000 or $1,500, which it's really cool, really unique. Probably a super low pop report, but that's too much.
I think there was there were a couple comps of those that sold recently at an auction. I don't know if it was Heritage or what, but there were a couple that sold recently at an auction, and they did a few thousand at least. So, I mean, there's some decent comps.
I mean, these aren't graded. They're loose copies, but yeah.
But, I was talking to Arcs Collectibles earlier today about some stuff. And, I think he put it perfectly. The main thing to take away from this last heritage auction was that the big titles did well. Why? Because the whales' wallets are recession proof, right? For them, they're bidding against each other. The few people right now that are, desiring those low pop early Nintendo games. And, I mean, their wallets are recession proof, and all the, the medium and lower stuff, the lower grade or the lower popularity or the higher pop count stuff. It's us normal guys, middle of the road collectors. The medium and the lower stuff has really taken a hit for that reason. What we have seen then is like some of the super rare, even CIB stuff do really well.
That's that. Us low class and medium class people could afford CIBs, and I think that's why you saw a push there, and now all of a sudden it's catching on and the prices are jumping.
Yeah. But you're seeing even I think some of the bigger whales buying that stuff up because they realize the scarcity. And I mean, you heard me say this a couple of years ago, eventually all that stuff is going to land. Because what are we in a phase? We're in a phase where this thing went crazy. A lot of speculators came in to buy up stuff. And, they're now like, okay, I want to get out. They're sending it to 4 or 5 different auction houses. It's getting cycled through fairly quickly. And the prices are low for many different reasons. But this stuff is going to land on collector-only shelves eventually. People that are not looking to move unless it's probably in a trade for something that they want even more. Right. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, I mean, the pops of this stuff are so low as we expand the market over time. It takes a long time for a collector to cycle out like, oh, I'm into this. This is awesome. It's nostalgic. I love it, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, I'm time to get out. right? A true collector. So the amount of time that that's going to take for someone to leave is a long time. So you have new people floating in here and there. The speculators are gone. Those people, you know, I mean, on some of this early NES stuff, you're talking about 10 copies, 5 copies, especially of early print stuff. I mean, even like the Excite Bike, in my opinion, underperformed. It was a 9.2A hang tab. They listed, it was a little confusing. I just got off the phone with Heritage too. And you know, I thought some of the variances in how they've described this stuff recently has kind of changed, and that's hurt a few things. For example, you know, they used to describe stuff that was hang tab as early production. Now, depending on what hang tab it is, it's mid production. They listed that Excite Bike as one code, which used to always be no code because it had no upper left-hand corner code. Now that one code they're referring to is that NES GP. You know, so that one in particular, I think it did about 35,000. That was in essence, what's really referred to as the hang tab no code 9. I think it was a 9.2A, or maybe even a 9. No, I think it was 9.2. It did 36,000 with premium. But the pop on that entire game is so low. There's like 6 oval seal copies on the pop report. Overall, there's less than 20. So if you're a collector of those, I mean, you have 20. Once those land in the arms of 20 long-term hold collectors, dude, that shit's not going anywhere, you know? And then you're going to look at CIB stuff and super high grade CIB stuff, which in a lot of ways is almost harder to obtain.
So yeah, that's what I was, to me, like, yeah, sealed will always bring the higher premiums, but to me, CIB, it's just cooler. Like, and like you said, harder to attain. Now you have to find 3 different pieces: manual, cart, box, all of the same very high grade, and
that all match. They all have to match the variant, and people don't realize how hard it is. Like, oh, this thing has a nice box and a really great cart, or a nice dude. Good luck. The only way you're going to get a good manual, especially, is to buy some other CIB graded copy that has a high manual and just piece it out. Because
you can find a shitty sealed copy that the box is beat up, it's
just
whatever,
and open it. Maybe
open it.
We're at the point where, would you rather have a 7.0 B plus, or would you rather have a 9.4 CIB?
9.4 CIB,
yeah,
100%. It's cooler, like, just is. And plus, I mean, for me, collectibles in general, like, it's about a treasure hunt, right?
Yeah,
that's the adventure. Once I have something, it's okay, or sell it, whatever.
I mean, you have your few things,
So if you need, you need that 9.2 manual for whatever variant, it might take years to find it, even with eBay. And that's half the fun. And then you have it, and you piece that together. Like, you put all these things that were missing back where they were. Like, if you're on the Titanic, you find like a coin, a menu, and some guy's arm or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Mint arm,
frozen,
perfectly severed. Yes, perfectly severed. Yeah, no seal tears on the corners. Yeah.
And then you send that son of a bitch to WADA.
No, I don't think. No, VGA would certainly make a encapsulation case for you. Yeah, they have the ability to bend their acrylic there and do that. So yeah,
but they don't do CIB.
Oh, true. Yeah, well, if it's in ice, maybe it's sealed. So the first. So my point was, I thought that Excite Bike underperformed, was one of the only super rare ones that I thought, and it was a little confusing with how they had it labeled, whatever. But also, most of the higher stuff did well enough, and then a lot of the other stuff. But that brought me to my other point. The market is down in general across the board, except for the premium stuff. 2021 and all that influx of capital and people sitting at home and collectibles going nuts and whatever. I mean, even considering that, we're still in a really great place. I mean, wouldn't be complaining about a lot of the sales and prices, even with the horror VHS auction. But, it was interesting to look. I follow, I don't know if you follow him, VVG Club, Eric Nierman. I always not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but I followed him for a while. He has a lot of cool stuff, and I think he buys stuff with some guys as like the investment head or whatever. But he always has some really interesting stuff that he's onto and some perspectives. I enjoy reading his stuff. And one thing that he posted over the last couple of days was showing the parallel between Bitcoin pricing and the price of video games.
Dude, we've talked about that for 2 years.
Yeah. But, I mean, really, in theory, we've talked about it, but he really dove into the numbers. And you had, I'm thinking of, just off the top of my head as an example, like, okay, this Super Mario World cost at this date 2.5 Bitcoins. Okay. Now this Super Mario World at the last auction 2 weeks ago cost 2.5 Bitcoins. Like, it's the same. The numbers are the same.
Yeah, I get you.
The only difference is the difference in price of Bitcoin.
It's the same person. They're not long-term collectors. They're get-rich-quick people, which who doesn't want to get rich quick? I'm not putting that down in any way. I mean, I did the same thing with Bitcoin. Luckily, we won't go down that whole wormhole of fucking up my life. But it makes sense. It's the same people. It's the same age range, same demographic, same everything that grew up with, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. So they have a love for it. The values are starting to go up. They want to recapture their youth. Bitcoin's coming up. It's their generation's kind of almost .com bubble 2.0, like getting on the internet, like Amazon or something early. So I don't know, the correlation makes 100% sense to me. And I'm glad that guy actually, did the legwork, because we sure as shit didn't, but we still were right in our intuitions. Like, I would always see a push in value once when Bitcoin was rising, every single time if there was an auction around then.
Yeah, we'll do the easy part. We'll show up here with our pretty faces and talk some shit about it, but spend some time crunching numbers and putting up posts.
That's why we never made the damn business plan.
That's why we're always actors, bro. Just show up,
I'm a writer now, bro. I do the work.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. How's that going?
Better than my acting career. I'll tell you that much.
True. So the parallels.
How hard would you say, you tried in your acting career? Out of like
terrible.
Well, same. If I put maybe a 4.5 of effort in, and I got pretty fucking far for only a 4.5 of effort. If I actually tried like normal people try, holy shit.
Dude, when I moved up to Malibu, I had been living in LA. When I lived in the Valley for 3 years, I would go to most auditions that I would get, right? Through breakdown services or whatever, through my agent. And then I moved to the beach areas. I lived in my van for a while. Then I lived with my friends over there. I would still go. Dude, when I moved to Malibu with my friends, you're up there, that breakdown comes through. And unless it's literally describing you absolutely perfectly, we lived up there in the clouds, bro. We were on the top of Tuna Canyon. Mm-hmm. Arsenio Hall's my neighbor. Gary Busey's my neighbor, running around looking through the bushes, crazy out of his mind. Like, why would I ever leave up there? It's a 2-hour sojourn through the whatever.
I mean, if you're going to the city, you're fucked.
You're fucked. So, unless it was absolutely, that was the end of my acting career, was living in Malibu, especially up there at the top of the canyon. Forget it. It's not like I lived right off the PCH somewhere. So, that was the end of it. But yeah, if we would have put in more effort, it certainly could have been different. But
I fucking moved to LA. I retired acting right before I moved to LA. Like, that's backwards.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff that filmed in Milwaukee and Cleveland, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Nothing good. One good thing ever.
Major League.
One, exactly.
Major League, the most important one. Fucking pisses me off.
I lived in Chicago for 6 years before coming out here, and I was actually trying to be an actor there. And I went as far as Chicago. Well, pretty close to probably as far as Chicago could take me. Now there's a lot more stuff filmed there, but at the time it was still kind of rising.
There were a lot when I was doing like a lot of extras and U5 stuff on Mad TV with because my roommate was the AD there. Most of those guys that I became friends with that certainly have done really well now, like Key and Peele, and dude, most of those guys came through Second City, Chicago. Almost.
That's where I came from, baby.
Yeah.
Except they tried.
Yeah, and they were funny, but that helps too. Yeah.
And you can learn that.
You can learn. Yeah. Just show up. You can learn being funny. You just have to show up. Yeah. So the Bitcoin.
Sorry. You mentioned your old neighbors. My current neighbor, as we know, Usher.
Last
3 days in a row, Scrappy for those that don't know, Scrappy's my dog. He has shit in Usher's driveway last 3 days.
Love it.
And Usher's been out of town.
Yeah.
And he just got back into town.
So there's 3 piles there.
I mean, I picked him up.
Oh, no. But if he if he gets out of the car and Scrappy shit is there, you should just go Cavs. Off you go.
Cavs.
Yeah, well, he was part owner of the Cavs. He might still be. I don't even know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Christ, I didn't know that. But again, dude, he was sitting. Sarah walked by again the other day with Scrappy. She's like, Usher was just sitting in his car again. I'm like,
I told you when I went for that run, I was like, dude, yeah, he was
he
just sitting
there in his damn car all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, I have to be careful what I say on this because I was just going to go on something that I shouldn't go on. And okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. So back to Bitcoin. The interesting thing to do also there was to break down the price then in comparison and contrast to that theory, right? So like 90% of the titles, if you go through the heritage auction, fall probably within a 20% range of that pricing, right? Where Bitcoin at 16,000 or Bitcoin at 60,000 at the time it's sold, but it's still 1 or 2 or 3 Bitcoins in cost. Okay. Yeah. The ones that fell outside of that, in my opinion, are like red flags to either buy or sell. Like Mario Kart 64 was an example of one that was way overpriced is if you compare it to what it just sold for at Bitcoin price and what it sold for at Bitcoin price then, and that was a big one that we've talked about. Like, dude, there's like 35 copies of that game out there. Everyone loves it. Yeah, it's the one that it raised the franchise to a different level or whatever. But, dude, there's a ton of copies. It's not the first print. Yeah, it's a great game. I think doing 150,000 for that game at the peak, 200,000 with premiums and shit was insanity.
Was that one first print? The 150, 200?
151 plus the premium, whatever. Yeah. I mean, all the prints of those are pretty much the same.
Okay, Mario 64 went for a fucking million. So if you look at it that way, 64 or Mario Kart's underpriced.
No, but I'm saying, yes, those are all those ones that fell outside of that 90% that did fall in the proper range, right? Those are the ones that obviously went overpriced or something, but you have the ones that that fall into that. And those to me, yeah, obviously that Mario 64 was a poor purchase in a lot of ways, and a lot of hype that got driven at that time.
I think it's going to be okay though, long term. I think it'll be a while to get back that value, but it's still a premium title in my opinion.
You're talking about Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are a lot of copies. I mean, and of course
Mario Kart SNES. Yes. Undervalued, in my opinion.
Hugely undervalued. Still, that one actually did fairly well in the auction, but hugely undervalued. And a lot of the Super Nintendo titles, let me look. A lot of the Super Nintendo titles, actually have different print runs, whereas most of the 64 games do not.
Well, I suppose not, but at least with Mario 64 and Kart 64, there's the platinum hits or whatever the fuck they call it.
Yeah, yes, certainly. But I mean, there's different print iterations of the like the boxes look exactly the same, but they're small, like differentiations. Same with like NES stuff, right?
And what I learned the other day, because I'm not like, this might be common knowledge and I sound like an idiot, but to tell the first print Nintendo Switch stuff on the UPC, it's all 5 zeros. Second print is 00001, 0002, blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't collect seals.
There's a couple interesting, like WAD has been putting out pop reports for more common games, like they just put it out for Mario Galaxy, and it was interesting to see that like Mario Galaxy has, I think it was a total of 10 or less copies graded 9.8 A++ or A+. Which I would have thought, honestly, that there were more, But
that was still kind of sealed video games hadn't like popped at that point yet. So people didn't think to save them. I think shortly after that, the next couple of years, then people started like grabbing the first release stuff and just protecting it and putting it in the box or whatever.
Yeah. Let me look at this real quick.
Like even the Wii U Breath of the Wild, those go for decent money. And that's a fairly new game.
Yes. No, well, there's a couple like rare there's a couple rare editions of that too. That have
variants, or in what way? What do you mean?
There's a couple, yeah, they're like collector's editions or something else that have come up that have done pretty well, if I remember correctly. So
God,
okay, here we go.
Multitasking skills are fuck.
They're terrible. All right, here's a couple of those. Yeah, so a 9.6 A++ did 144,000 at the peak.
This is Kart?
No, that was actually in April of 2022, which I wouldn't even consider. This is Mario Kart 64. 108. Where's the most recent one?
I mean, of those two, of Super Nintendo, Super Mario Kart and Super Mario Kart 64, say they have the same, say they're both 9.8 A+.
Yeah.
In your opinion, not what you think they'd go for, but in like your heart, which do you feel should be more valuable?
Of which ones?
Kart 64 and Super Mario Kart.
I mean, in my opinion, Super Mario Kart should be worth more than that game at any point in time. It's a significantly lower pop. It's the first edition. Yeah, the game's not quite as good, maybe. It didn't bring
better.
it.
Fuck off.
I think it's better, but most people like the modern version of Mario Kart, which is what Mario 64 brought us into, right?
Mm-hmm. I will say the Rainbow Road on Super Nintendo is Star Cup is the hardest track of the whole franchise, any iteration.
Yeah.
No bullshit. There's you fall off all the damn time. Someone fucking bumps your ass and you fly off.
Yep.
But I love it.
Dude, the one that I have, the Super Mario Kart SNES with no game pack on the back, is considered, that's in essence the first ever print of Mario Kart in any way. The pop is like 4. Like, of the, like, why that? Now there's only one that's ever gone to Heritage, and it was an 8.5. So who knows what it would actually do? Okay, but you're talking about, I mean, the highest price ever for Mario Kart 64 was 144,000 back in April of this year. Was a 9.6 A++. Like, in my opinion, if that's worth 144,000, then the first print should be worth $250,000. Like, this is pop 30. That's pop 4. Like, and it's so much more important. The numbers of that game, that's why I'm holding that forever. Like, until it's what it should be. But if you look, the last one did a 9.6 A+, did 26.4. That was just 2 weeks ago. And where's another similar comp? A 9.6 A+ did 48 just in August. And let's see, there was one, like, I mean, during the peak, a 9.4 A+ did 108,000. That was in December of 21. And so, yeah, I mean, the drop in that game has been significant. I'll say this too about the auction. Talk to a bunch of collectors. WATA has gotten significantly tighter in their seal grades. Okay. That auction was filled with A grade or below. There were some A+ and stuff, but the majority of the items in that auction were A or below. A lot of A's. Now, I think some of those were more newly graded stuff, and that's why it was that way. But I mean, dude, think about 2 years ago. The early big heritage auctions, like, there was very little differentiation in the seal grade value. Like, people were like, oh, it's a 9.6, A+, A, kind of all went for the same shit. Then finally people started realizing, and two, that's why I think VGA values have gone up significantly recently. I mean, in comparison to everything going down, but because, you know, dude, a 9.4 A, especially any kind of older WATA grade prior to these last maybe 6 months, dude, a 9.4 A could be an 80 or an 80+, you know, because of how lenient and how strict VGA has always been. Like, dude, I have a couple 90+s. Those things are like mirrors. They're they're flawless. If you have a 90
could pour
or
a fucking 8-ball on those and just fucking chocolate breakfast on a mirror.
Dude, those are glass, bro. Absolute glass. They're like wakeboarding glass. That's from my boy Mikey Nedeljkovic that just joined. Thank you, brother. He said that was a 69 grade. I'm not surprised. He's like a teenager.
I mean, 69 still holds up. I'm damn near 40.
I'm gonna send shit to. Yeah, I mean, you know, 69.
It's still funny. 69.
Yeah, do it all the time. I do it all the time. Yep, do it all the time. But yeah, there's, you know, if you have a 90 or a 90 plus or a 95 in any cardboard box Nintendo game, dude, that seal you can pretty much guarantee is practically flawless. You know.
Yes. Hey. What do you have a first memory of 69? Not 69ing somebody. I'm not saying that, but like when you're a teen and you heard like what is that? 69. Or did you just come out of the womb knowing what that was because your jawline and everything?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was doing 69 in the crib at the hospital, so you know.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I already, you know, they saw the jawline and they just hopped, you know, incubators and came on in.
When in your modeling days, did you ever? I mean, you had a nice jawline. I do not. I have a weak chin and jawline, so I had to do the trick of the like the biting of the inside of the cheeks, like the
tighten it up,
and then sucking this in, go like,
so I can look like new Tom Brady.
Ooh, who doesn't like that?
Yeah,
which is great for modeling, but the second you have an acting audition, you're like,
yeah. Hey, Tom, single Tom Brady's 2-0, by the way. Just a little FYI.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I mean,
yeah, well, Giselle's dating a jiu-jitsu instructor, so
you lose the stress if you lose the stress of, if you lose the stress of that, then you're good. You know, it just opens up a lot of things in life, right?
I'm divorced, so yeah.
Yeah,
sure does. Hey, enough of this heritage auction horse shit. We did a half hour on it. Let's actually talk about cool stuff from the 80s or stories or something interesting.
Well, this is a perfect time for a lead-in for your big segment, right?
Hey!
This is...
Man, I thought you made a graphic or a cool video or something. Don't make me do this.
No, it's your segment.
It's already underwhelming. It's not going well. We'll make it better in the future.
Okay.
I'm not going to promise, but...
I'll bleed like a Zelda trumpet.
In the Wild.
In the Wild.
The new segment where we show you what we found in the wild.
In the wild. Dude, we could do like it's a great 80s song. You know, make it in the wild.
Get that Kramer guitar going and the Marshall amp. We're ready to fucking rock.
In the wild. Share us something that you got recently in the wild.
I mean, neither one are bangers, but I found these at the same place, this little shop in San Diego. I had to go down there for Alicia Keys concert. Not bragging. It was a work thing.
Yeah.
So this is kind of cool. You know, this is one of my bands, but
oh yeah,
with hype sticker,
dude. The Annie Dokken albums are really hard to find,
dude. So hard, especially with hype. And it's hey, speaking of glass,
remember we're on a podcast here. You need to tell everybody what that is.
Oh yeah, right. So we got Dokken under lock and key. Sealed cassette, first release with pink circle hype sticker. I mean, I'd been looking for this album.
What's the hype sticker say?
What I always say, rockin' with Dokken.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And then it's got the It's Not Love, In My Dreams, and the Hunter.
The Hunter is so good, dude. Oh, the Hunter
too, right?
Yeah. Oh, the Hunter is so good.
Great fucking song.
Yep.
Literally,
there's one other banger on there.
What am I missing? What do you mean?
Besides the Hunter, what's the other big bangers on there? There's a couple.
Oh, In My Dreams, dude.
Yeah. There you go. In my dreams are still the same.
So yeah, and original, price sticker on the back, which I love.
Yeah.
And I said I didn't want to talk about grading shit anymore, but this will grade pretty damn well. And dude, like I was saying, and you said, it's so hard to find these even on like eBay, the biggest quote unquote source in the world. To find one in the wild at some shop
Yep.
Like it was some dirt hole shit record store.
Yep.
And so I get it. And the dude's like, "You like that hair metal, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, I do, man.
Yeah.
I do." I was like, "I get a lot of shit for it." And he's like, "Yeah, I used to be a rocker. I got a Camaro." I was like,
Yeah, what a lead in, dude. Like, that's all that you're like, oh, respect. Okay.
and then he's like, "Oh, here, check it out, man." And he shows me the phone, and it's a 67 Camaro. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then at the same store, this isn't sealed, but even loose, this is hard to find. The 8 Mile soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I was going to say something, though, there before you moved on. You know, it's amazing how you said, I take shit for it. Dude, yeah, I got into Pearl Jam and Nirvana and some rap and all this other stuff. My heart was, I was still listening to like, Tesla and Warrant's albums into mid 90s when they came out. And everyone was like, oh, that shit sucks now. And certainly into the late 90s and 2000s and 2010s. Like, why do you still rock that shit? Why do you listen to that stuff? It all sounds the same. And I'm like, no, it's so intricate. Every band is different. There's so much. And like all of a sudden now it's blown up and we finally have the respect that we deserve. And those artists do for how different and the variance of their music. It doesn't all sound the same. It never has, and it just fucking rocks and kicks ass. And like they said in The Wrestler, what was so wrong with just wanting to have a good fucking time?
That's an awesome scene. And what band is featured in that scene? Rat. That's
Rat. Yeah. Hey, so that reminds me of a couple
also
things.
Like, grab what you need to grab. But and I think we agree on this. Like, hip hop and rap will lead the way for sealed cassettes, CDs, and stuff like that. But maybe it's just my heart. But I do believe hair metal, the rare stuff, will be kind of in that second tier of value.
Well, I mean, you know what I've said for the 2+ years. It's been about 2 years now we've been buying cassettes. And it's funny that my boy Zach just joined us. Perfect timing. I've said from the beginning, I think it's metal, rock metal, like more not leaning as heavily towards hairband stuff, but like obviously Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth,
Well, Guns N' Roses. That's what I mean. 80s metal, hair metal, or thrash or whatever. But that
I think that's top. I think that's top tier in my opinion.
It's not going to take down rap.
It's not going to take down rap. But I'm saying you got to have a couple things. Like, yeah, is there the same stuff of early black box? Well, you got to put something else in there. But I think the top couple things are rap. Obviously, I think probably leads the way. That more harder metal stuff. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Guns N' Roses, that kind of stuff is maybe Motley Crue 1B, right? 1A and 1B there. That's the main stuff, Speaking, yeah, you did join at a good time. So, but I think, and certainly speaking of that, then this is something that will lead the way. This is going to be one of the grails of
left or right. So it's not other way. There you go. Nope, you had it.
Well, two cameras. Perfect. Yep, there we go. I got two cameras. I'm watching.
So hey, we got listeners that aren't watching. Why don't you tell them what it is?
Dr. Dre, the Chronic, sealed cassette with no inmates. The bottom left hand corner here. The later prints after the first year had proper shout out to the DOC and whoever else for the inmates there for this who was on the cassette. This is rare. I mean, the pop of this that I've seen for 2 years is less than 10. You can see it's in a case. Just a little foreshadowing. Not anything to talk about yet, but I will say that we've had a couple announcements from a couple companies. More are coming. That's certainly going to be the next big thing. Music media, 8-track, cassette, vinyl, CD, all that stuff. And, I was talking to my friend earlier today about what's been going on. And I said, I'll explain to him what happened with VHS. Dude, like VHS, I've said this many times. You went to the store, you bought this. Now, not the early stuff for $79.99, but certainly once we got even into the mid 80s when shit was $20, you went in, oh, this title, I love this. You brought it home, you put it on the shelf. Well, you'd already seen it at the theater, so you might not have opened it. But you open cassettes and CDs on the way home from the fucking store.
Put them in. Tape deck of the escort.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or you put them.
Sex joke.
or you put them into dude, you put them into the CD player, then plug the tape adapter into your Escort. So, one way or the other, that thing was getting
That
open
Escort
on the way.
plugged.
That Escort was getting plugged. Yes,
And
100%.
bumping. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What you found that in the wild? This is in the wild section.
I know, but you mentioned some stuff about the cassette.
Wild?
Okay, so I didn't have anything in the last week or two in the wild, so I wanted to, go. It's a throwback early first episode of In the Wild. So I want to talk about, and I'm not going back all the way. I was collecting sealed video games starting in around 2002 for about 10 years. One of the first 10 or 20 guys. Saw the Hawaii collection live on eBay. Blah blah blah. Then everything was in the wild. I mean, you got some stuff on eBay, but like my Super Mario World that's been graded since 2009, I think I got at my local store for $20 in 2002.
I remember, sorry to interrupt. I remember, right around then, probably because I was finishing high school. So yeah, somewhere 01 to 03, call it. I remember the local shop, actually where I got that Jordan Bird that began our beautiful friendship.
Yes,
sealed Jordan Bird.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember seeing several copies of Super Mario World. They're sealed, and yeah, I think they were like $40 or $50. Like,
yeah, I think
crazy.
That's why you see a lot of the stuff that's been graded maybe 10 years ago still has like a lot of Kmart stickers on, right?
I remember these were KB, but anyway, yeah.
KB and Kmart, because they were in the bin and they're usually scratched out with a price on them, right? $19.99, because that was it. The early collectors scooped those up in the early 2000s when they were still available at some of those stores. Toys R Us, Kmart, KB,
nobody wanted
Babbage's.
Super Nintendo then. No, why would you?
Yeah.
64 had been out for what, 6-7 years at that point.
Yeah.
PlayStation 2.
GameCube was out at that time. So yeah, you were talking about, but that's what, so I'm saying that's where I got that. But I got back into collectibles a couple of years ago after like a poorly timed 8-year break. Had kept my Marios and Zelda stuff, thank God. But the big thing was there still was some stuff at that time to be found in the wild, honestly, like big stuff in video games and stuff, which was rare, because most places is caught on or it would get snapped up immediately. The hype was getting there. So this one I found, and you've been to my little secret spots here locally, a couple really great game stores we have, but this was one that I got at that time at the store, and it had the Hills department store sticker on it. Remember Hills? I don't know if you had that in Milwaukee.
Only listeners don't know what you're holding up.
Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island for Super Nintendo. It's now been graded. It's an 85, and it's a really, really choice, clean 85. There was a period where VGA was a little strict. I've seen it because I submit to them so much. This was at that time, I think, and I've had a couple people interested in this. They're longtime collectors, know stuff well. This is a 9.4 or a 9.6, A+.
And I'm sorry because I did interrupt you. What was the price sticker? Hills something?
Hills department stores. Do you remember them?
They
were in the Midwest. Yeah.
They didn't make it that far north to us.
But I found this at a video game store sealed in the wild. Now, it wasn't cheap. They had kind of gotten the idea of what it was worth. I think I paid about $800 for it, but it's still in the wild. And I mean, the comps on this recently are well over 15,000. The one was over 30. There was a early one that went 2 auctions ago, I think.
I mean, that Dockin cassette, Dockin's going to go for $15K.
Easy. Into the fire. Yeah.
Dude, that guy was shocked because it wasn't his store. He was just working there. And I think it was $40 for that Dockin. And he was like, $40?
Well, yeah.
You're going to pay $40 for this?
Dude, isn't it great to find people that you're either mostly buying from, or you'll throw them an offer on eBay of something and they're just like, they're almost like, are you insane? Like,
yeah.
Well,
I mean, to be fair, who does spend $40 on a goddamn Dockin tape?
But I'm saying, like, dude, there's a lot of stuff in the VHS and whatever else, and you're just like, oh, and if you've been buying video games for $5,000, spending $300 or $400 on a cassette or a VHS tape is like, okay, yeah, where do I send it, dude? The people are mind blown when you throw that at them. They're just like, wait, what? Like, how you want? I mean, I've literally had people go, you want to pay me how much for that?
Yeah.
Like,
I've had people, and I'm sure you too, they think you're like scamming them.
right,
They think
right.
it's a
Like this
scam.
is a scam. Yeah, you have to be careful because they'll think it's a scam for sure. For sure. So that was the only Into the Wild cassette, but I did have a couple things that I wanted to talk about that I did get this week. So you know that I've been working on my top lists for a long time now. That was kind of my overall goal because if not, you just keep going and going and going. I said once I get my top 100 video games of importance in my life, sealed or high grade CIB, that's going to be the end of it for me, unless it's just something to buy and sell. And so I am now one game away from having at least a placeholder for every one of those. Now, there's some upgrades I'd like to achieve, but I am now one game away from that completion of that 100 list. Thanks to my buddy Zach, who has two or three or four great stores in Pennsylvania. Just press play online. You can check that out. But I just got this from him. This was a big one for me. A couple surprises here. This is Russian Attack for the NES. Obviously, play on words and how it's spelled, but certainly fitting for this last year, right? And this game meant a lot to me for a few reasons. I mean, it's a great game for one, and it's one of the early games that I remember renting at the video store, and playing the hell out and being like, oh my God, I have to own this. I'm thinking, I think I sent you those pictures this week where we did narrow down the timeline of, because we have some pictures of me with NES stuff. I think it was 87 that I got my first Nintendo for my birthday. So right around.
You warmed my heart, man. When you said renting from the video store, all of a sudden, so much shit just flooded to my mind. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, dude, it went from let me go, and that'll lead me to another one. But it went from let me go to the store, mom, and get this movie or that movie when we were like 8, to then NES games were for rent when we were like 10. And then it was like, okay, you can get 2 movies and 1 Nintendo game for the weekend. Remember? Like, for sure.
We were much poorer, but yeah.
Yeah. You can rent 2 movies and 1 Nintendo game. And so it was like, oh my God, what a weekend you're going to have. And this was one of the first rentals I remember having. This game is hard as hell, by the way, if you've never played it.
I mean, it's
got really awkward jump mechanics where you push up on the pad to jump, and so that made it very difficult. It took a long time to get used to. And this is the hang tab non-rev version with a 5-screw cart, and it's really clean, high grade box, 9.0 overall with 9.4 subs, and I was surprised there was a 9.4 B+ at Heritage's auction last week that only did like 4,000. Like, dude, middle of 2021, that game would have done 30 or 40. Like some of these titles that only mean something to us weirdo kids from the 80s have seen a big decline, and it's a good chance to get stuff like that. But this was a big one. This was now got me down.
All right, so what's the last one?
The last one is I don't want to tell you. No, actually I will, because maybe somebody can help me. A plea.
So once it's good for you, you'll tell the listeners.
Yeah, well, I don't want to give it away so they come back, because I want to do a segment.
No one's coming back. I'm going to come back next week. I
want to do a sequence at some point that unveils the... Dude, what is this?
Well, I know you're not a multitasker, so I'll tell a story. With the video rental, right? At my dad's house, I'd go there on the weekends. I had 2 older stepbrothers. You got to rent. It sounds like 3 things, which, again, you guys were obviously upper class. We got to rent. One thing. Good luck getting 3 boys to agree on the one thing you rent. So that led to some skirmishes and stuff, and then it would be one boy gets to go and pick, and we'd rotate weekends. But then when we got home, we had to play in half-hour increments, and we had to get along, and you had to watch the other ones to support them.
Okay.
That wasn't good in theory. It didn't work out so hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would rent
that stuff usually ended in a fist fight. Yep.
Oh, yeah. I would rent Days of Thunder because they hated it. They didn't like racing. To be fair, whether you love racing or not, that game was fucking impossible. So I would rent that all the time. But here's a weird little piece of trivia. The video store we went to was in Cambridge, Wisconsin, and there's one notable person from Cambridge, Wisconsin, that is Matt Kenseth, former NASCAR champion. His parents own that video store.
Oh, wow.
So I literally would rent Days of Thunder on Nintendo from Matt Kenseth. He was behind the counter.
Who was a race car driver. Amazing. Yeah. Nice.
NASCAR
I like
champion.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. NASCAR champion. Love it.
Yep. That's also why, hey, anybody out there, why I want Hackers on VHS so much. One of the times
I've looked for
we all
it for
went
you.
I'm so hard. We went, that was on there. We saw that box cover. All of us boys actually agreed to rent that. There was no fighting, no nothing. And we rented it and we loved it. And then we'd play Uniracers on Super Nintendo afterwards because it was like fast and like we were hacking. There's no actual logical correlation there, but we felt cool. So yeah, I need the Hackers first release. I need it badly.
And the one I'm looking for on video games is Lode Runner, which I remember vividly for Macintosh when I lived. We had moved temporarily to Springfield, and a neighbor had a Mac and would let me come over and play on his computer where you had to play with the keys.
See, I knew you were rich. A computer?
The neighbor had one. I didn't have one.
To live in a neighborhood with a computer?
This is like 1985.
Oh my God. That's
85 with a Macintosh, and they had Lode Runner that you would play, and it was like in the little pixelated guy. You'd run around and you cut the stairs out.
Didn't even get the internet until 1996.
Thomas, can you please hang up? I need to get on AOL.
Hello? Hello? Well, Thomas, what are you doing on the phone?
Yeah. You're on the
Can you dial for me?
Yeah.
No.
Can you try one of the numbers from Hoboken, Wisconsin? Maybe you'll have a better chance.
I'm downloading a South Park song, Mom. I just start over. God.
So, this was the other thing that I picked up thanks to Sealed Nostalgia. House on beta. There was one that went in the last auction. Now, here's the funny part about this. This, I thought, was the movie that my mother let me rent, and it was the last was the last movie I thought I needed for my top VHS list. Okay.
Your town had a computer in 1985.
Dude, will you shut up?
It just baffles me.
Yeah.
In Ohio?
Yes, in Ohio. Yes,
wow.
In Ohio. Yeah.
Wow.
So dude, what is going on here?
Is that why you're such a computer whiz and a tech guy?
No, that has nothing to do with it. That's just because I'm so smart.
No, when I said that, it was sarcasm. You're clearly. I'm sorry, you were saying?
No, I was saying this house was one of the first tapes my mother would let me rent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought this was the movie. Well, I watched it last night after I received it, and I thought that I received this, that my mother let me rent this because it was like an appropriate horror because I wasn't allowed to watch horror previously. Okay. And turns out that after I watched it, I realized that this was not the movie. It was actually the second one that was much different in tone. It wasn't as horror based. It was more like a comedy.
House 2?
House 2. Yes, the second one.
Vacation home. Like what?
Different. The second one was a totally different storyline, a different house, a different whatever. But it was certainly a really cool movie, and it had the first and the second one had really cool special effects and stuff. So it was actually House 2. So I'm still looking for House 2, which was now here's what I loved about House 2. If you haven't seen it in years, or if you have never seen it, House 2 is like so stereotypically late 80s, like 87, 88.
Release, when did it come out?
I think it came out in 86 or 87.
Okay.
But maybe 86. Dude, it tries to be Goonies, Platoon.
Platoon.
It tries to be Mannequin. It tries to be, dude. It tries to be.
He's a mannequin. I can sort of see.
I'm not kidding you, bro. I'm watching it and I'm like, how is this not respected as one of the greatest 80s movies ever with everything that it tries to do? And it somehow does them all a little bit. Like, we literally need to do an entire pod on that movie because that's how unique it is.
How?
1987. Yeah.
How?
Dude.
Is there
just watch it. There's flashback scenes from Vietnam.
Okay. So the pitch meeting for that's
the first one, but I'm saying the combination of the two of them. The second one gets into
the first one is the Platoon or the second one?
The first one has elements of Platoon. I watched them both back to back, so I'm a little like jumbled together. However, the House 2 was the one that I saw, and my mom would let me. And it has, dude, I was thinking about it as I was watching it, how many 80s referenced movies it has. It has, like, I made a mental list of like 6 or 8. It was wild of how many movies that movie tries to replicate and does it pretty well. It has all the things. It has like the flashy car, the douchebag guy, the funny sidekick friend. It was like Weekend at Bernie's or Mannequin in that sense. It has like the hot girl, the hot foreign neighbor girl. Like, dude, it covers all it has like the special effects of the stuff that was very popular at that time.
And Platoon?
Not Platoon, no.
Oh.
No.
So the second one, there's no Platoon elements.
Not a little bit. There is still a little bit of Platoon elements.
Let's make a Platoon 2. What do you think?
Okay.
Like, how do we do Platoon 2? People die at the end, though. That's going to be tough. Platoon 2, Desert Storm.
There we go. I mean, that's what they just said, like a reboot, like they did with House. It's a total reboot. But I'm serious. We're marking it down. You're going to watch that movie, and we're going to dedicate like 15-minute segment to talking about it because it's so many things in one, bro. It's wild. It's wild. Okay. When I get that one, finally, if anyone can help me there, those are the two things that I'm looking for now.
Does House 2 have... Oh, sorry.
The House 2 cover is almost identical.
That's what my question was. What is the cover?
That's what threw me off because I thought this was the one I watched a lot growing up because I think I rented it. My mom was like, okay, you can rent this one horror title. And so I think I rented it like 12 times. Okay. And it's not really horror. It's got some scary aspects, but yeah, that was it. We're getting up to our hour here. I think we've had a great segment and show. I'm going to say there's some things we're going to try to be consistent seeing this week to week because we have had a good number of listeners on the pod, which we appreciate you guys tuning in. If there's anything that you'd like to hear about or us talk about, please feel free to email us. I'm going to mark down because I skipped over a couple things that I thought would be really interesting to talk about, including, and I'm going to just throw them out there as a teaser because I know you like to prepare like a good actor that you are.
I did not prepare one thing for this.
I know, and I thought it went.
Grabbing the Dokken cassette. That was.
I think it went well.
I will say mediocre.
Okay, well, fuck off. You can find somebody else.
Other than the Platoon 2 thing, that was good.
Yeah, the Zelda handheld. I want to really talk about that.
I don't.
And then Thursday, I'm just throwing it out there. Thursday, you see it there in the background. Christmas Story. The sequel comes out Thursday on HBO. Thanks for your account, by the way. Oh, wait, don't tell him. Let's watch that this weekend so we could talk about it next week. A lot to talk. Obviously, very 80s related there. Christmas
I will
Story.
not watch it until you watch 8-Bit Christmas.
I'm gonna watch 8-Bit Christmas closer to Christmas. This is for the podcast. This is our job.
Oh my God, that's
work.
Perfect. 8-Bit Christmas.
We will closer to Christmas.
An 80s Christmas.
This comes out this week. Just watch it, and we'll talk about it. So we have that, and then there was one other thing. Oh, yeah, Superman, superheroes, dude.
Ugh.
We have got to talk about the boys, right?
Now or in the future? Uh-oh. Mr. fucking 1985 Macintosh we're losing him. Can't hear him. It's still live for me, so I don't know if it's still going or not. Yeah, and too cheap to actually pay for an account. I mean, I don't need these anymore. Fuck it. Well, hold on. Go ahead and like close out that program because again, it's still like the live counter's on for me. All right.